Hello, hello, and welcome to the live stream, day one of the Lead Your Way workshop. As you are joining, just drop in the comments, where are you joining from? I know we have people from all over the US, from Europe, from all over the world joining us today. And so put in the comments, where are you joining us from today? And I'm going to be streaming to a couple different places today, so make sure that you grant StreamYard access so that I can see your comments. There's usually a little bit of a delay, but this is going to be really interactive, so I want to make sure that I can see your comments and questions. Hello, hello, welcome. I can see people joining. Philadelphia in the house. Okay, nice to see you. Let us know where you're joining from. And you'll want to make sure that you have something to take notes with. Ideally, you have printed out your Lead Your Way workbook. So we are going to be going through that today. Today is going to be really interactive and it's going to be action-packed, so buckle up. All right, let's hear from some other folks. Where are you joining in from? Let's see, from New York. Hello, Mona, great to see you. Okay. All righty, so we are gonna go ahead. Hey, in Miami, great to see you. Very nice. Okay, good. So again, if you haven't let us know where you are dialing in from, go ahead and put that in the comments today. Make sure that you grant StreamYard access. Hello from the Bay Area, great to see you. Okay, we've got the US covered. We'll see who else joins us today. And again, you want to make sure that you have something to take notes with. It's going to be very action-packed. We're going to go through a lot of valuable material. Print out, if you've printed out your workbook, you definitely want to bring that with you. We're going to be going through it. Lots of good stuff. So welcome to day one of, hey East Bay, the Lead Your Way workshop series. And this is the last one of these that I'm going to be hosting. Hey Myra, for the remainder of 2020, obviously. What a year. Am I right or am I right? I know everybody's had, it's been a mixed bag for a lot of people. And so I really want to end this year together, wrap it up in the spirit of community. And also I want to give you tools to feel really empowered and good about what's happened in 2020 and all that you've accomplished, even if it doesn't feel like that. But more importantly, set you up to have a stellar 2021, no matter what comes your way. And we know that there's going to be a lot of unexpected things that come our way. And so we're going to get out ahead of it and we're going to plan for it. So welcome to the Lead Your Way 5-day workshop. If you are, by the way, viewing this and you haven't registered, make sure that you register so you can get the workbook and access to the replays and the homework and all those materials, and join our Facebook group, because that's where a lot of the discussion is going to be happening. It's a very interactive group of high power women who are also incredibly supportive. All right, so we are going to talk about this week how to increase your influence, your leadership impact, and your income. And I think we can agree that those things are incredibly important going forward, right? And I know there's a lot going on for everyone. It's a busy time of year. And so I just want to say, first of all, congratulations for showing up for yourself. I realize how hard it is to carve out time, but I promise you it will be worth it. And it's so important to take the time to reflect, to focus on yourself, and to think about what you really, really want, right? We don't often ask ourselves that. A lot of times as women, we tend to put ourselves lower on the totem pole. And so we're going to move that up. So obviously, it's been a year of change and turning points. And I'm curious to hear if you would drop in the comments What has been the biggest change that has affected you this year? Just drop it in the comments. I'd like to take a pulse of what we've all been dealing with. And while I'm waiting for your comments, I'll let you know, in the Northern California Bay Area where I am, we just went into full lockdown mode again. And we're going to be in that through at least the beginning of January. Right. My two kids have been doing virtual middle school all year long. That's been quite a ride and a lot to manage. But what have been the biggest changes or things that you've had to deal with since the whole start of the pandemic 9 months ago? And I know, I've heard from different people, some people you're really trying to help your team and your organization manage through this, especially when it feels like it's an always on culture, right? Because we're all working from home. And what are the boundaries? So you're trying to help people manage through this, people who look to you for leadership and guidance. I know some of you are figuring out how to pivot into a different career, right? Whether you've been downsized or whether you want to, whether you want something different for yourself. Okay, yeah, so solo quarantining, remote work, we've all been pretty isolated, which is, again, why it's so important to create a community. Zoom fatigue, yes, I'm sure this is not your first Zoom call of the day. Not being able to meet in person, yeah, so true. I know some of you also in your roles, you're struggling with being the only, right? Maybe it's the only woman or the only woman who looks like you. Maybe you're trying to grow a business during a downturn. Okay, we see someone had a baby in February and then coming back to remote work after maternity leave. I've worked with a couple people who have started new jobs, C-suite jobs, during the pandemic and actually haven't met their team in person. It's all been via Zoom. And they're trying to figure out, how do I set my leadership agenda? How do I develop trusted relationships? How do I get my arms around what it is that I need to do and be able to lead my organization effectively, right? So there is a lot going on. And so I just want to acknowledge that we've all got a lot of things going on. And again, good for you for showing up for yourself. So, no matter what your background is and whether you are in corporate, whether you are an entrepreneur, it has never been more important to be intentional about what it is that you want and set yourself up for success. Trusted relationships. Yeah, that's key. All right. So I'd like to hear from you. Just drop in the comments. What is one thing that you are hoping to get out over these next couple days? What would you really like to take away from this workshop series? I'm going to take a pause and have a drink of water here, but what would you really love to get out of these next couple days? 5 days. 5 days of 30 to 60 minutes each. Today will probably go a bit longer because we have a lot to cover. All right, so I'm waiting to hear what it is you'd really like to get out of these next few days, this workshop series. Again, I want to invite you, be very intentional, use this time to focus on yourself, on what you want for yourself. I bet you probably haven't even thought about what do I really want, not just how do I get through the day, but what do I really want, right? And I find that a lot of people, especially women, and especially in this pandemic, don't take the time to focus on themselves and to look inward. They're focused on taking care of others and making sure all their responsibilities are covered and covered well. And it can be exhausting when you don't stop to slow down and think about what it is that you really need. So we know that your ability to be agile, to pivot into possibility, and find opportunity to zig when other people are zagging, that's really critical. And it's going to be critical for at least the rest of 2021. We know that this year is just going to continue to bring more change. Yeah, game plan to close out 2020 strong. Awesome. Shifting mindset. Yes, we're going to be talking about that. That's so important. So when it comes to pivoting, I'm curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you think about pivoting into your power over the next year, how confident are you feeling? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is low and 10 is high, how confident are you in your ability to pivot and make adjustments with your career and with your life and do what you need in order to achieve your goals? How are you feeling about that? And I will go ahead and introduce myself. I realize I haven't done that. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Christy Consular. I am the CEO of Sustainable Leadership Advisors. I'm an executive coach and leadership consultant based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but I work with leaders and teams globally who are at inflection points, right? Who have to step up to that next level of leadership influence, of success, and who have space to grow, but who need to do it in a sustainable way, right? Where you're not burning out. Okay, so we're feeling a confidence level of being able to pivot right around in the mid-range, 6 to 7, 5. Okay, one who's at 7 or 8, so that's a little bit more confident. But certainly that's been what this whole year has been about, right? So I'm also a wife and a mom to 2 kids who are in middle school. As I mentioned, they've been doing the virtual thing. And as we're managing all of that, I'm running my business. There's a lot of balls in the air, right? And by background, just so you know, so I've been in the coaching space on and off for about 10 years. I'm a former C-suite executive, former Fortune 50 executive, and I've pivoted at least 4 times in my career. So after undergrad, I worked in banking, then I got my MBA, and then I went into marketing and brand management. Then I took a trip down entrepreneurship lane and started my own coaching and consulting business almost 18 years ago, and decided to go back in-house and headed up executive leadership development for a big Fortune 50 company. I ended up then pivoting into sustainability and corporate social responsibility. And most recently, my corporate post was head of HR and sustainability for a well-known consumer brand. So I've done a lot of different things. And for the past 5 years, I've been back doing coaching and consulting. It's something that I am incredibly passionate about. And while I work with leaders and teams of all genders, I'm especially passionate about women's leadership development. I believe we need more strong, empowered women standing shoulder to shoulder with men, setting the agenda for our world, for our business, for our communities. And so it's my mission to help empower women to stand in their strength and to be the best version of themselves, so they can do that, but in a way that they're not burning out and they're not trying to twist themselves into a pretzel being someone they're not, right? How do you be authentic and use your strengths and still be wildly successful and have a great quality of life? Okay, so that's what I'm passionate about. So as a coach, I coach people individually. I work with teams, and I also do a global women's leadership development program for a tech company. I've just started a virtual women's leadership institute that I make available to anyone, where you can sponsor yourself, or if your company chooses to sponsor you but maybe doesn't have a whole program that they want to roll out internally, you can participate in that. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. And obviously, there's been a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion in leadership over these past few years, but we also know that change isn't happening fast enough. We know that with COVID, women are bearing the brunt of this and are really stretched to capacity. And I'm curious to hear, I don't know about you, but at the beginning of this, when you receive a shock to the system, like when the world went into lockdown, human beings have one of 3 responses, right? It's fight, flight, or freeze. Right, so you get this information from your environment. Maybe you see a headline coming out, whatever it is, and that triggers a stress response. So there's this part of our brain called the amygdala, which is the ancient part of our brain, and that is concerned with survival. right? And it takes a while. It takes about 90 seconds for an impulse to get from your amygdala, your creature brain, into the prefrontal cortex, the human part of your brain, and to be able to logically and rationally think things through. So we always react on an emotional, survival-based way first, and it's either fight, flight, or freeze. So I'm curious to hear, when all of this first started, what was your first reaction? Was it fight, was it flight, or was it freeze? I'm curious to hear. And I'll tell you, for me, it was freeze. It took me a while to get out of my funk and to get into action. And if you've been, you've probably been reading articles, freeze, yep, another freeze there, and seeing information about how there's this, it's kind of like death by a thousand cuts, right? This year has been so tumultuous, certainly in the US with the elections and different things going on in different states and different municipalities. Okay, so we've got a bunch of freezers here, right? And I'm curious, where at first freeze, but then fight set in after a while. Okay, awesome, fight. All right, we got a fighter right out of the gate. And so how did it change? Did you go from freeze to fight or flight? What happened here? Fight for me was get on a plane out of New York and get back to San Francisco. Wow. Yeah. I'm sure you were just like, okay, forget it. All bets are off. I'm getting that plane ticket. I'm driving to the airport and it's going to happen and I'm going to get there. So just so you know, this year has been unlike any other. And there's something called surge capacity, where we have exceeded our capacity to be able to handle all of this news and change. And so we're getting fatigued by it, right? It's change fatigue, and it's almost like a battery or, like a light switch, where it's like you overload the circuits and it surges and the power goes out. And so I just want to let you know that if you're feeling that way, it's normal. It's absolutely normal, because we're not meant to handle this much change on a sustained basis, right? And it puts us into that survival mode. And so, and by the way, no shame if there's fight, flight, or freeze. I mean, you're going to have one of them. And I want to give you a really quick tool right now. You might have heard of this, but it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to practice. So practice with me, if you will, right now. So when you get triggered, when you have some kind of a stress response, right, your amygdala gets triggered, it takes about 90 seconds of deep breathing in order to bring your cortisol levels down, your stress hormones down, and to be able to have the thinking move into your human part of your brain, the rational, logical, prefrontal cortex part. So that means about 5 deep breaths. Yes, fatigue for sure. So let's all do this now. Just let's take 5 deep breaths, and you'll see how long it actually feels when you take 5 deep breaths. It might sound simple, but again, it's something that we often don't make time for. I was fighting against this the other day. I got a piece of bad news about one of my team members who's dealing with some COVID struggles, and I was triggered. And I knew in my rational thinking, I said, okay, I've got to take 5 deep breaths. I got to get my stress levels down. And it was so hard for me to actually get to 5 deep breaths. But it really does help. So anyway, I recognize, there's a huge need for support. There's a huge need for community. And over these next 5 days, I'm going to teach you the best of what I know to help you get a head start on 2021, to set yourself up so that you have the right mindset, you have the right tools, you have the right strategies, and you get the support, not only of me, but of the community. So make sure that you make use of the Facebook group. We're going to be doing homework and really taking the time to reflect before the end of the year. So I'm going to turn now to our handy dandy workbook, and we're going to go through this. We're going to start filling this out. So the Lead Your Way method has has 4 main pillars, right? So we're going to build that foundation today. I'm going to take you through what those 4 pillars are and describe them a little bit. And then we're going to go into detail over the next 4 days on each of these. And we're going to wrap up on Friday with developing your plan for 2021. So you will definitely leave empowered and inspired. So the 4 pillars of the Lead Your Way method are: number 1, influence authentically. And by the way, if somebody can put that in the chat, pillar 1 is influence authentically, right? You have to be influential and have your voice heard in order to have an impact as a leader, in order to have the kind of impact that you want. And not just at work, honestly, like in your whole life. How can you influence authentically? So tomorrow we are going to dive into this about how do you influence effectively and still be yourself? How do you get your voice heard? The second pillar, pillar 2, and again, thank you who put that in, pillar 1, influence authentically. Pillar 2 is operate in your zone of genius. You might have heard the term before. This is something that we're going to go into on Wednesday, but zone is actually an acronym, and it's a way to figure out how do you move forward fast. How do you operate at your most effective, your most passionate, your most engaged, and get unstuck? You know, I know a lot of people are feeling stuck right now. So how do you get out of that? And how do you, really kind of up level and move beyond where you're feeling like, I just can't bust through this particular barrier, okay? So that's pillar 2, is operate in your zone of genius. And again, Wednesday, we're gonna go all into this. I'm gonna give you some real live examples of how clients have done this in the past. Pillar number 3 is grow your income, all right? And here's the catch. Pillar 3, grow your income, is through your relationship and your neural networks. So of course you hear, you've heard before, your network is your net worth, right? So it's all about the importance of having a broad range of relationships and people who know you. And it doesn't have to be close relationships, by the way. In fact, it's oftentimes those people who just sort of know you peripherally who are the source of the best kinds of opportunities. So yes, we're talking about relationship networks, but we're also talking about your neural networks. We're going to be talking about neuroscience and how to use the power of neuroplasticity and neurogenesis in order to really become empowered and envision a new level of financial security for yourself. All right, so we're going to be talking a lot about that on Thursday, and you don't want to miss that session. And I'm not exaggerating. In past sessions that we've done, people have added $40,000 plus to their income just from some of the tools that we've shared. So you definitely want to make that. It's important to be able to stand in your value and to be able to act on it. Okay, so that is what we're going to be doing on Thursday. And then day 5 is pillar 4, and that is take empowered, courageous action. Right? So what steps do you need to put in place specifically? What does it need to look like? And what's at stake for you in 2021? So we're going to take it from this big amorphous thing and maybe not very specific, and we're going to get specific, and we're going to come up with those specific action steps so you can move forward and achieve what you want. And again, be cheered on by other people who want to see you succeed. So the Lead Your Way method is based on the core principles that your inner game and your outer game have to be aligned. So your inner game is the mindset, the beliefs that drive your behaviors, the assumptions about who you are, what you're capable of, what rooms do you belong in, what rooms do you not belong in, how much of a voice do you have, how much power do you have, right? That's all what I call the inner game of leadership. And then there's the outer game. And the outer game is what most leadership development focuses on. So it's, what are the specific tools, the strategies, the action steps. What I find, and those are all important, right? But what I find is that if you don't have a strong inner game, you are not going to consistently show up with a strong outer game to be able to use those strategies, those tactics, those tools in order to achieve your goals, in order to create the lifestyle that you want, in order to create your leadership voice. So really that inner game is critical. And in this method, we focus on both. They have to go together, and you have to be aligned in both in order to get traction. And most importantly, this is on the bottom of page 2, you have to mobilize into empowered action. One thing I know is that information does not equal transformation. Here's what I mean by that. We have all read books, we have all watched videos, we have taken classes, and just because you know something intellectually doesn't mean that you are actually going to do it. And back to what I talked about before, where we have emotional reactions to things, we're going to be practicing things throughout these 5 days to get you used to taking action, not just, understanding from an intellectual standpoint, but trying out some of these particular strategies. And specifically, you'll see in your workbook, I'm going to be asking you to post your answers to the homework each day, because I want to give you accountability. So you're going to be posting this in Facebook group. You're going to be posting your answers, accountability. As you read what other people are posting, I encourage you to not only be inspired, but to offer ideas, offer suggestions, raise questions that you might have of people in the community. We've literally had people in the group learn of job opportunities. We had one person decide to launch their business during this program. Something that she wanted to do is she was pivoting out of corporate and into launching her business. So there's a lot of power that comes from being in this collective group and from taking action. So I encourage you to not just watch and be a passive bystander, but to actually put this into practice. So as I mentioned, the huge gap, I think, that exists in leadership development, and especially for women, is the fact that it just deals with surface things. And so I'm going to, in the outer game, right? And so I'm going to draw something for you on my whiteboard, and it's going to be super janky, but stick with me. So this is on page 3. If you imagine an iceberg, right? And here's the water. The surface stuff that we see is anywhere from like 5 to 10% of the actual substance of the iceberg. This is what the observable behaviors. So how do you speak? How do you present yourself? What words do you use, etc.? Like all the strategies, tactics, the things that are observable. But what drives that? Okay, so this is the outer game. Sorry, I'm so messy. What drives, what supports what you see on the surface is actually all this stuff below the surface. That's your inner game. That is your beliefs about what you're capable of, your fears of what you can't do, your assumptions about what's possible for you. All right. And just as an iceberg is mostly under the surface, the Lead Your Way method is really focused a lot on that inner game and gently unpacking and excavating and seeing what is there that supports the rest of the iceberg so you can have the strongest foundation possible. And I don't know if you know this, I found this fascinating. If you're a neuroscience geek like I am, what they found is that most of those core beliefs and assumptions about yourself, what you're capable of, that core programming, a lot of that is in place by age 7 or 8. So we get that initial programming. We're steeped in our environment, the family that we grow up in, the community, the educational environment, etc. And we don't even realize how much we're internalizing everything, but it really does drive who we're being and how we're showing up in the world. And then over time, as you move throughout the world and you're stepping up to new things, you have to let go of some of those things that are no longer serving you in order to make way for new empowered beliefs and assumptions about yourself and who you are and how much power you have. And that takes some skill and some work and some support. But just know that a lot of us are walking around with some outdated scripts. And I liken it to, the need to upgrade your mental operating software. Because we have to conceive of ourselves in a different way in order to move to the next level. All right, and so that's my next point. At every new level of impact, you need to upgrade both your inner game and your outer game in order to succeed. So I have one of my friends says, new level, new devil. And it's really true. Every time that you stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, you have to deal with fear. You have to deal with uncertainty because you're pushing yourself and you haven't done these things before. And that, again, back to the amygdala, that's triggering. But new level, new devil, if everything that you want, you're going to have to push through that programming and upgrade your mental operating software in order to have a bigger impact and to step fully into your power. And again, it's especially true for women. And what we know is that women have, this is again, this is midway down the page on page 3, women have what's called negative self-illusion. They actually are more capable and qualified than they give themselves credit for. So they underestimate their capabilities and their power. So women have negative self-illusion. And this is not my opinion. This is based on research. Men have positive self-illusion, meaning on the whole, they are less capable and qualified than they actually think they are. All right. And, you'll hear examples of this all the time. Like when, say, a job opportunity is posted, I work with clients on this all the time. They'll see an opportunity that they want to go after. That would be a stretch for them. And they'll take themselves out of the running before they even throw their name in the hat because they think, oh, I don't have all of the qualifications and the skills. I shouldn't put myself forward for that, right? And, the story of how men look at, the list of qualifications and say, oh, I've got, 3 out of 10 of those things, no problem. I can absolutely do this. I know I can handle and learn along the way. At least I've got some things that are on there, right? Whereas women will feel like, if I'm not checking off 9 of 10 or 10 of the boxes, then I shouldn't put myself forward, right? And it's important to realize that this is something that is not your fault. It's socialized within us, okay? So very briefly, the way girls and boys are raised, certainly there's genetic differences, but there's also strong cultural differences. And in North America, for instance, think about how little girls and little boys, girls are taught to be polite and to get along with everyone. And even the ways that they play, if you think about girls playing dolls, you don't win at dolls, right? You can't win at dolls. So it's all about, having this power dead even where I'm not going to be one up or, we're all kind of equal and I don't feel comfortable putting myself out there in a way that makes me stand out. In the UK, they call it the tall poppy syndrome, right? Where if a poppy grows up through the field and it's higher than the other ones, it gets cut off, right? And that's painful. Whereas boys, they are praised for different things. They are praised for being rough and tumble. There aren't issues with being perceived as aggressive. In fact, it's desirable. That's not desirable for women. And so we have a lot of these, this programming that is really driving and influencing how we're showing up and what we decide we can do that we're not even aware of. And again, it's not your fault, but it's important to know, and this is the thing with the arrows, your mindset, those things that, and by the way, you're not mostly aware of your conscious thought. I'll go into that in a moment. Your mindset drives your behaviors drive your results. And the mistake that people make is they look at their results and they say, I don't like these results. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try different behaviors and see if I can get different results. And yes, that makes sense, but it's not enough. You have to go all the way back to the beginning. You have to go back to your mindset and upgrade your mindset in order to drive sustainable, empowered new behaviors, which then lead to new results, improved results. Okay, so let me know if this is making sense. I'm going to take a swig of water again. And let me know if you have any questions. And as I'm waiting for any comments here, let me know if this is landing for you. I want to share a particular example. This was a painful example for me, but pivotal, really. And it was back when I was heading up leadership development for this Fortune 50 company. And the week that I started this new job, I found out that I was pregnant with my first child. And I freaked out. I was excited, elated, of course, very surprised, but also like, oh my God, how am I going to do this new job and launch this leadership institute while I'm growing a baby, right? And so I remember I had my daughter, and I was out on maternity leave. And 2 weeks into maternity leave was when this Leadership Institute was launching. And I was going out of maternity leave to go and kick this off. The CEO, and I was going to introduce the CEO, and others would, other executives were going to be presenting and leading this. I had recruited a really excellent team who had worked super hard for those 9+ months to put together an awesome leadership curriculum. And we did, all the best practices research. We incorporated, all the latest thinking. But I remember here I am as I'm pulling on my still stretchy maternity pants because I couldn't wear regular clothes, putting on my suit jacket, hoping that it fit, trying to look all businesslike, even though, I was 2 weeks into new motherhood and had a colicky baby, and I was going to spend 3 days away from her overnight. And I remember getting in the car and just feeling, rather than elation and excitement that, my team had been working so hard on this, that we were finally going to be launching this Leadership Institute. Instead, I felt panicked. I was exhausted. And I remember driving in my car over the Bay Bridge into the East Bay and feeling like I was the little kid going in to sit at the grown-ups table. And who was I to be launching this Leadership Institute? What if they didn't like it? What if I screwed up when I introduced the CEO, right? There was a lot going on. But needless to say, at that vulnerable moment when, my defenses were worn down, I really went back to feeling like that little kid, like that 7 or 8-year-old who's sitting at the grown-ups table and feels like she doesn't have a voice. Needless to say, obviously, I made it through, but I was in such a state of, just uncertainty, and this imposter syndrome that I thought I had dealt with came up, and I realized I really needed to deal with it in a different way than anything I had learned before. And so I made it my mission, especially because I just had a daughter and I didn't want her to pick up bad, disempowered messages from me. I made it my mission to figure out how to upgrade and up-level that inner game, and eventually decided to go back into my own business because I know how incredibly crucial it is. But I do want to say, from what I learned, I was able to then move into the C-suite. Not saying that we all don't have a crisis of confidence from time to time, but it's, I knew all the stuff, all the outer game stuff, all the surface level stuff on the iceberg. I didn't know the inner game stuff and everything below the surface that drove how I was showing up. And so I know that that's really important. So the challenges, I'm going to keep moving along here. This is on the bottom of page 3. The challenge is that only 5% of your brain's activity is conscious. You got a lot going on, but that means a full 95% of your brain's activity is unconscious or subconscious, right? So most of your decisions, your actions, emotions, behaviors, it's automated. And we're moving through our day reacting and taking in a ton of information, and we're mostly on autopilot because we have to be, right? I also want to let you know that as much as we like to think that we are rational creatures, we are emotional creatures. We're wired that way. That's how we survived up to this point. And so that's why mindset is so crucial. So moving on to the next page, an empowered leadership mindset requires making a choice. First, it means making the choice to expand into possibility versus contracting out of fear. Possibility versus fear. Really quick story. A woman that I was coaching in the UK when the whole COVID thing happened, and her company was sort of tightening their belt and doing some layoffs. She was convinced that she was going to be laid off, and was wanted to have a discussion with her boss, but was terrified. And when she finally, as we worked through and got her feeling in a stronger, more confident place, when she actually met with him, not only did she not lose her job, but in fact, they gave her a raise and a retention bonus because she was so valuable. So here she had been coming from this place of feeling really small and scared, right? The amygdala got triggered and she was worried she was going to get cut. And in fact, her perception about herself was really off, and she got a retention bonus. So, she would talk about possibility versus fear. The second thing is it's important, and I bet you haven't done this lately, it is important to dream big. Dream. Allow yourself to dream. During times of such disruption, that's when new innovations and breakthroughs and business models and opportunities come. So just let yourself dream big and remove perceived limitations on what you can be, on what you can do, on what you can have. So I'm going to ask you to suspend your disbelief over these next few days and just make space for yourself to dream and to play. Let's see what we come up with. And then number 3, you need to, I mentioned this earlier, you need to upgrade your mental operating software, right? So that's removing those perceived limitations, those, I'm sure you've heard of limiting beliefs, all that good stuff. But it really is, there is a science as well as an art to this about how you get in and really identify those things that are holding you back. And then how to be able to be grateful for the fact they got you this far, but then also be able to choose new, more empowered ways of moving through the world and more empowered beliefs. And that is something that, quite frankly, regular leadership development, most coaching doesn't deal at that level. But it's really important that you get the expertise and the help in order to be able to adjust that, because it's stuff that's deep below the surface. But I liken it to a good chiropractic adjustment, right? Like if you've ever thrown out your back and then you go into the chiropractor and they make that one little adjustment, but all of a sudden it's like, you feel so much more at ease. You have so much more freedom of movement. You feel like a new person, right? And so that's what I'm talking about. And we'll be doing a little bit of practice on this, but obviously it's not something that we can do over live stream in a very deep way. Number 4, you need to tend to your mental and physical wellness with the discipline of a professional athlete. If we have learned anything, it's that this year is a marathon, not a sprint. And I remember back in March when we first went into lockdown in the US, and I was thinking, all right, this might last till it's summer, right? So it was like, you imagine a 10K race. No, it's a marathon, and it's starting to look like an ultra marathon, right? So this is our new way. And in order to sustain your energy, your enthusiasm, your sense of possibility and, positivity, you really have to focus a lot on taking great physical care of yourself, really tending to your mental energy. It's extremely important. And really quick tip here. It's really important that the number one thing that high performers do in terms of their habits that sets them apart from others is they have a morning routine. So I'll share with you, and it's important, it's really good if it can be simple and easy to implement and something that you actually enjoy doing. So for me, when I get up every day, I do at least one meditation, and then I'll do some yoga. I do, if anybody's done yoga with Adriene, have you ever done that? Free YouTube videos, but it's awesome. She has these short yoga routines. I do that. And or I go for a walk outside and I just get my blood pumping and I get fresh air. Does anybody have, I'm curious, does anybody have a morning routine? If you do, what is it? And if you don't, be thinking about what you'd really love to do, because it's really important that at the beginning of the day, you give yourself the signal that your physical and mental wellness is your number one priority and that is non-negotiable. Because it's like putting on your oxygen mask, right? When you're on the plane, putting on your oxygen mask as opposed to waiting until, there's a huge problem, okay? So you need to tend to your mental and physical wellness with the discipline of a professional athlete. And number 5, you need to step into possibility and action, not fear and paralysis. Again, as I mentioned in one of these prior workshops, I've done a couple of these throughout the year, and I've changed them up each time slightly. This one especially because we're going to be planning out our 2021. But one of the women who attended, she launched her own business. So she had this 30-year career, and it was winding down, and she had been thinking about launching her own consulting business. And through doing the homework, through, just verbalizing it, putting it out there, she got some encouragement and she actually launched her own business. She put out a message on Facebook, and I think it was LinkedIn, and got new clients from it. Imagine that. Like, she put out, I'm going to be doing this new business. I'm really excited about it. Here's what I'm going to be focusing on for new clients. Pretty incredible. So I really want you to realize that there is a lot of possibility for you here. Okay, so it looks like we've got someone else who might be starting their own biz or doing a pivot. Okay, don't have a morning routine, you jump right into your workday, but you do have a routine to exercise in the afternoon, which makes such a difference. Yes, that's important. So here's what I will say, and believe me, I am not a morning person at all, but I make myself do this, and again, it's because I know the research on it. It's critically important that you at least get your mindset straight in the morning, and you decide how you want to show up, how you want to feel that day, and really think through your priorities and give yourself some time to do some deep breathing and to get clear-headed, okay? And if you don't, you run the risk of getting distracted. And then it's like other people's agendas and what's going on externally can really invade your personal space and what you focus your energy and attention on. So if nothing else, I encourage you to do, and by the way, you can do really quick. One of my favorite meditations is an 11-minute meditation. I do another one where it's by someone, she says, don't even get out of bed, just stay in bed. And then she runs you through this guided meditation, and it's really helpful. Okay, morning routine is usually coffee, prayer, meditation, gratitude journal. Love that. Would be great to build a movement too. It is. Here's the thing, especially during this whole pandemic thing, we're sitting more than ever. And we actually have a lot of intelligence, and most of our information that we take in is through our body, not just our head, right? So we're not just a head sitting at a desk typing away. And it's important to get up, to move, to be able to shift your perspective. You have to be able to do that physically. So as much as it seems like it might not be worth it, or, I can't afford the time, it actually ends up saving you time. So think of it as additive when you take the time to move your body. Okay. I will, in the Facebook group, I'll put the name of the meditation that you can do in your bed. That's my kind of meditation. All right, let's see here. So, and then look for opportunities to pivot into growth. Okay, so here is what I would love for you to do in order to take this from being information and turning it into transformation. You will see on the bottom of this workbook is the homework, and I want you to post your answers in the Facebook group. Number one, here are the questions. Number one, fill this out. In my ideal world, the way I'd like to feel every day is, how do you want to feel? I bet you haven't even thought about that. But how would you like to feel every day? Because again, we are emotional creatures. We are. As much as we want to be rational and in control, we're emotional creatures. So how do you want to feel? It's all about mindset, and you have a lot more control over that than you think. Number two, if you felt fully empowered, supported, and guaranteed to succeed, in other words, you remove the fear, then in your career or business, what would you do? And this is where that person decided they'd launch their business. Okay, but what would you do? And number three, what would accomplishing that or having that do for you? What kind of a difference would that make? Why is it important to you? A lot of times when we step back and we reflect, we realize, you know what? It's really not selfish for me to focus on these things. In fact, everybody's better off when I am strengthened, when my inner game and my outer game are aligned, when I feel supported, when I feel empowered, right? And then number five, what gets in the way of having that already? So, it's focusing on what is it that how would you like to feel? What would that do for you? What would you do? And then what's in the way of you already having that? Okay. So here's how I would love to end up. Just drop one word in the comments, or one comment. What is one takeaway from this discussion today? What is one thing that you're taking away from today? And then I want you to know, as when you post your homework in the Facebook group, I read through all of those comments, and I would really love to hear. I'd love to be able to support you. I know the other people in the group would too. It's an amazing group of women, so I would love to see your comments and make sure that you do that. And also feel free, if you want to invite friends or colleagues to participate this week with you. You can feel free to send them the link. I think we'll send that out, or in fact, let me grab the link. And we'll hook them up with replays, with the workbook. We've had several people do that, where they go through this with a friend, and they really got a lot out of it, and we're accountability buddies. Okay, dream big, awesome. Information is not the same as inspired action. Absolutely. Get your inner game and your outer game aligned. Great. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for your attention and your engagement. Tomorrow, we're going to talk all about how to be influential and how to be authentic. So that is a can't miss session. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. And I can't wait. Okay, see you in the homework and in the Facebook group. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.